Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel. Now what I have here is a piece of London plane. If you're not familiar with the wood, it's a hybrid between American sycamore and Oriental plane, and it's been in England, especially in London, since the 17th century. Now what makes this piece special is where it was taken from. This piece has stood guard outside one of probably the most iconic police station in the world. It's been stood outside of New Scotland Yard for many decades, until unfortunately it had to come down to fit new security bollards. So we're going to pay homage to this wood and where it comes from and create a very, very special piece. Now if you were to Google New Scotland Yard, you would see the very, very iconic sign which spins constantly outside the building. It's an equilateral triangle in shape, and that's what we're going to make with this. But we're going to be doing something else a little bit special with it, but you'll find out later on. Now I've already cut a nice flat side on there to help us start measuring. So the next thing I need to do, because we've got a live edge on that side and a very, very nasty torn side on this one, I just need to create a couple of lines on the outside so we can have a proper place to measure from. Now, if I recall my trigonometry lessons from school, which were an awful long time ago, I get that width of my calipers, put that right on the corner, make a mark on the wood there, and I'll do the same with this corner, make another mark, and that point there, when connected with these two others, should give us an equilateral triangle. Now I'll join these up and then I'll measure it just to make sure that I haven't made any stupid errors. Right, just over 31 centimeters. Just over 31 centimeters. And just over 31 centimeters. Excellent, we're doing it right. So I'm going to quickly cut this out on the bandsaw and then we'll figure out what to do next. Okay, so there's our beautifully cut, possibly an equilateral triangle. Now, next thing we're going to do is find the center. And again, from my basic trigonometry lessons, which I never really paid much attention to, maths was never my strong suit. If we draw a 90-degree line from the tip of one corner, they should all intersect in the middle. A lot of people ask me what this pen is, and it's just a white acrylic marker that I get off Amazon. You can pick up about 10 for about £7-8, so they are pretty useful. Right, so that hopefully is the center of our piece. So what I want to do now is get this on the lathe so we can start taking this to the next stage. So I think the best way to mount this is to drill my 8mm hole in there and put it on a worm screw. Okay, we're nice and safely on the lathe. Now London plane is also often known as lace wood, and this is because it has medullary rays that look like lace that's been woven through the grain. Now the best way to reveal that grain is to quarter saw the piece, and I'll be talking a little bit more about quarter sawing a little bit later on, but the first thing we need to do is to get this base flat, and then I've got to try and figure out how I'm going to do what I want to do with this. Okay, I've just sharpened up my 3/8 inch record power bowl gouge, initially turning at about 750 RPM. I could probably pick that up higher, but well, you'll see in a minute, as soon as you turn it on, it's like turning on a tornado. So if this camera starts moving and all the rest start moving because of the draft, then I apologise. Haha! Wow. Okay, I mentioned those medullary rays looking like lace. Well, there you go. I could see them a little bit underneath the muck on the top, but bloomin' heck, that is incredible. I forgot what I was going to say now. I had it planned out and everything. Right, so we'll carry on. I'll get it all nice and flat in the base, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about what we're going to be doing with this. Okay, excellent. We're turning it all the way around, and the good thing is that I'm not losing any of these tips yet. Okay, so I want to make this a representation of where it's come from. We've already got the shape, but the other important thing about the New Scotland Yard sign is that it is constantly rotating. Now, I'm not going to go for something which constantly rotates, but I am going to go for something that will spin when it's applied a push by the hand. And in order to do that, I have a bearing. Now, I've never used these with wood before, and I've had a good sit down and think about it to figure out how to do it, and I think I know what I'm doing. So what I need to do is create, first of all, possibly a recess or a foot on here that I can hold to turn it around to hollow it out a little bit, but also another hole on here that I can get the bearing into. So I think the next step is just a couple more passes, just putting a very, very gentle curve in from this edge to create a foot, and inside that foot we'll put the recess. I think that's going to be the best way to go forward from here. Now, in order for this to rotate, it's going to need another piece underneath for it to sit on and rotate. So I'm going to be using one of the offcuts from this to make a stand for it. Okay, right, so a nice healthy piece of wood. That surface is looking pretty good. I think I'm going to go across there with a scraper. I did initially intend to put maybe a slight curve on up here, but and I don't want the bottom angle to be a duplicate of the top angle, if that makes any sense. I just want the bottom to be flat, to stay architecturally correct to the sign itself, and then we'll hollow out the top. Okay, I don't need to do the scraping quite yet because I need to figure out getting the bearing in and creating a way of holding this when we turn it around. Okay, before I mark out for the recess, I just need to flatten off this base. So we should be quite safe at the moment to have the tailstock away while I flatten this off. Okay, the next thing I need to do is to make a hole big enough and deep enough for our little bearing. Now we need it to be as exact as possible because we don't want this being loose, wobbling around or falling out. So a nice compression fit. Now measuring this with my vernier gauge, it is 31.97 millimeters. So I'm going to go and find the closest match I've got to that under the size in a Forstner bit, and we'll go in with that. Okay, we're just ready with our bit to start drilling. Now I'm not going to go all the way in and risk getting this wrong on the first pass. I'm just going to go in a couple of millimeters and then we'll test to make sure that we are not making any stupid mistakes. And then if we're doing okay, then we can go in the rest of the way. Okay, that's perfect. It doesn't easily go in. I think if I hit it with a mallet it would go in. So that's going to do us fine. So I need to take it in the depth of this, which means we go down to there. Okay, beautiful. Right, now I just need to quickly flatten off this base to make sure it's as good as I can get it. I'm going to, I think, rather than having this raised foot here, I think I'm just going to gradually fade that into the bottom so it's more of a fluid line as opposed to a ridge, and then we can sand this bit. Okay, that is looking pretty good. I'm very happy with that. There are a couple of tool marks, but I'm not going to tempt fate by trying to seek perfection because I can get that easily enough with sanding. So I'm going to quickly sand this. There'll be plenty more sanding later on, so I'll just bring you back when that's done. Okay, sanding was very straightforward, so I'm just going to clean out any dust left in the grain with a bit of isopropyl. I mean, you could see incredible grain before we even put this on, but you can see why it's called lacewood now. Right, all I'm going to do at this moment with this is just put a sealer on it to protect the wood, because I haven't quite decided on a final finish yet for this piece. Okay, that's all nice and dry. So I'm going to go on with a normal shellac based sealer. It's just going to help protect the wood while we're carrying on working on it, and before we can decide on what finish to put on the outside. Right, okay, I'll let this dry, and then I think I'm going to try and fit the bearing in. Okay, let's see if we can get this seated relatively easily. I've lost my bearing. Ah, there you are. It's certainly tight. If I am doing something wrong, I bet the people who know I'm doing something wrong are cringing horribly, and I apologise. Right, I'm just going to put a little bit of tape over there just to help prevent getting any dust into the bearings. Okay, now that's all sorted. I think the next step is to turn it around and get this piece finished off, and then we can start making the base for it. Okay, we've turned around, so it's time to work on the top. Now initially I did consider having hollowing it all the way across, but as we've decided, or as I've decided, to make this into more of a sculptural piece, I think it needs to have a square flat sides and then the bowl inside. So the bowl would be at maximum that size on the outside. I don't want to go too much closer to the edge than that. Now whether or not we put a rim on or have this go straight into the middle, I don't know yet. So while I decide, I think what I'll do is just cut in from this edge, flattening off the top but stopping around this area here. I must admit, I'm quite enjoying the draft. It's quite warm outside, so it makes for a nice break. Right, that's revealed the beautiful grain again, so that's nice. Now what I think I'm going to do is start to hollow out to this lip here, and then we're going to make a call whether or not we go from this edge and in, or if we leave a slight raised lip. At the moment, most of me is thinking that you should just go straight in and not have any lip. So I think that would sit best with the piece, but I want to give myself as many options for as long as possible. So we'll hollow out up to this edge, leaving a rim, and then make the call. Okay, hollowing is going beautifully. I'm going to have to take the tailstock away in a second, just so I can finish off and get rid of all the rest of the material. Now, one thing you can see here is the medullary rays are really starting to pop out as we're changing the angle in the wood. Now, that is purely because that this piece of wood was quarter sawn, and I promised earlier on to tell you a bit more about that. And to make that easier, I wrote a small article. I've published it on my website, so I'll hand over to VoiceOver Mike to go through that. This video is sponsored by Squarespace. Where did it come from? Now, using the tools provided with a Squarespace website, creating a new page, section or drop-down menu couldn't be easier. Everything is drag and drop. You can choose from pre-made templates or start with a blank section and add any feature you like, as you see me doing here. I wanted people to be able to have easy access to my piece on unlocking the grain, so there is no better way than adding it to my website along with other articles on making polishes and working with shellac. Within just a few minutes, I can have the layout looking exactly how I want, complete with photos, text and built-in search engine optimization to help people find it. Squarespace even generates a unique QR code for each page, making it simple to share your work anywhere, from social media posts to printed materials. Squarespace gives you everything you need all in one place, from content creation to publishing, and it's designed to be so easy anyone can use it. So why not do what I did when I first started with Squarespace? My first venture into using Squarespace for my own website is the same as I'm offering you now. Head over to www.squarespace.com/MikeHolton to start your free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code MikeHolton to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or a domain. Right, we'll take away the tailstock now so we can carry on hollowing out. I still haven't made a decision yet on whether or not we're going to keep this rim. Okay, it's going well, but I think I need to make a decision on whether or not we keep this rim. I'm just going to quickly flatten it off so we get the raw colour through, the finished colour, rather than this sawn surface, and see how it looks from there. Currently thinking that I might just leave an incredibly shallow lip, just a very, very small one. Actually thinking about it, on the back we flattened the rim so it kind of blended into the base. So we might do that on this one. Actually, that's not a bad idea. Let's give that a go. There we go. So it's just there is a lip there. It's kind of hidden if you look at it straight down, but if you look at it from the side, it matches what we have on the base. I like that. Okay, I'm glad we found that. Right, continue hollowing. I'm not going to take it too deep. Love it. That's going to do us absolutely fine, I think. Right, I'm going to set up for sanding. I'll let you watch a bit of it, and I'll bring you back when we're done. Now, for something so simple, that really took some time. Right, going back on isopropyl alcohol, clean out the dust, and have another look at this amazing grain. Okay, right, we'll let this dry, and then I think I'm going to have to decide on the final finish. While I'm deciding, I want to go and have my lunch. Okay, had my lunch. This is all nice and dry, so we can go back on with the shellac sealer. Because all of the side of this piece is all end grain, I'm going to put 2 coats at least in this area, because it will suck it in quite quickly. Okay, now for the main attraction, as it were. It's just so beautiful. I've decided to go on with a beeswax and mineral oil finish on this. I don't want anything too glossy, but I still also want it pretty well protected, and that'll do the job quite nicely. So I'll let this dry. I think I'll go on with 1 extra coat of shellac, and then I'll put the beeswax on. Okay, I've changed my mind. I'm going to go on with Howard Feeden wax. It'll do very, very similar things to the beeswax I was going to use, but I just slightly prefer it as a finish. So we're going to use this. Can somebody please remind me to buy some more? Just one of you. I don't want to have the same situation we had with the 120 grit sandpaper, where about 100 people reminded me. If just one of you, if you could remind me to order some more Howard Feeden wax, that would be great. You can decide amongst yourselves who it is. Also, if you've enjoyed what you've seen so far, then I would really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. It's completely free. It doesn't cost you anything. It makes a huge difference to us. To do the back as well, because that never got done before. Okay, the way this works is that I'm going to give it 20 minutes to sit on the piece, and I'll come back and buff it in. It's probably going to need 2 or 3 coats, especially on the end grain, but we'll see as we progress. Okay, right, I shall sort this out. I'll bring you back in a second when we start on the base. Okay, we can carry on now. This is one of the offcuts we took, so I'm just going to cut a block out of this area here. We'll get it on the lathe and we'll turn the base. Okay, I've got a nice little block cut up here, so I'm just going to get it on the lathe between centres. Close enough. Okay, so all I'm trying to do initially is to flatten off the sides and create one tenon on this side. Is that the tenon that I'm going to be using to hold it into some jaws, so we can create the base, or the bottom of the base, which we can then turn around and then start shaping it to what we need. Okay, that's all we need for now, so we'll get this out, get it into some jaws, and then we can start. Okay, we're on the jaws. I'm just going to quickly flatten off this base, put a recess in, and then give that a quick sand, and then we can flip it over and decide what shape this needs to be, and also get in the parts that we need to have in order for it to fit with our main bowl. Okay, right, I'm going to quickly sand this base. There's no need for you to watch this bit, but I'll bring you back in a second when I've turned it around and it's back in the jaws. Okay, the bottom's sanded and we're all ready to begin. Now, first thing I need to kind of determine is the height that I want this piece. Now, with using this small roll of sellotape, I just sat the bowl on top of this and I determined that this was too big. It needed to be about that height in total. So if I can just mark on there where we need it to be, and then we've got that reference point ready. So if you remember back to when we were doing the base, we inserted this bearing inside, and it's the bearing in there which is going to help this rotate. And the way I hope it's going to work is that we're going to create a small peg on this piece which is going to sit inside there, and then it's going to spin. Now, apart from the peg, we also have to create a small lip on the side of the peg which is going to sit on this piece here, but not too far that it runs into this piece. Okay, so peg, lip, out a little bit, and then across. All right, sounds simple, doesn't it? But we have to try and create that with as a tight a tolerance as possible. So I'm going to be using this to measure. The other measurement we also need is how wide this needs to be to get inside of the tenon that we made on the other piece. So I'll go and measure that now so we know exactly what we need. Okay, I've got my drawing so I can understand. 85mm width. The middle peg is 11.5mm in diameter and 10mm long. The little seat below it is 1mm deep and 20mm wide. And if we get all that right, we've sorted. Excellent. Okay, I think the first thing I need to try and practice is getting this peg in the middle 11.5mm wide. Okay, I'm just quickly glad I just checked. My 11.5 should be 12.15mm. Excellent. Right, we can do that. We know that. So, shall I just go for it? Right, if the worst comes to the worst, then I'll just get another piece of wood and I'll make another one. So we're going to go for it. What does that entail? I'll tell you what, I've got a great idea. Right, if I treat this top bit as the final piece, then if we get it right this first try, then I can just part it off here or wherever, and then just sand the bottom when we're done. I don't have to worry about this bit. I'll just turn that into, I don't know, something. Okay, right, so we'll do that. This needs to go a little bit deeper, and I also need to start thinking about a 20mm lip. So we'll just make this deeper first by a reasonable amount, because I can always cut it out afterwards, and then I'll make a 20mm rim on the outside of it. So close. Okay, that will work, hopefully. So I just need to put a gentle curve on here, and then we can part it off. I'll sand it first, obviously, then we'll part it off. Okay, before I sand this, I'm just going to partially part it off, and then we can sand it, part it off the rest of the way, sand the base, and then bring these two pieces together. Okay, I'll quickly sand this piece. There's no point in making me watch this little one. It's only going to take a few seconds, and then I'll bring you back when we are parting this off finally, and hopefully marrying these two pieces together. Okay, all's good. Quick clean off with isopropyl. I'll put a bit of finish on this piece, and then I can part it off the rest of the way. A bit of shellac on there, then I'll come back on with a Howard feed and wax. Okay, a little bit of Howard feed and wax again, like the rest of it. I want to polish surfaces here as well, because there is a chance that they are going to be touching each other in places. I want it to be able to run smoothly. I've no idea if this is going to work, but in my head it works, and that's the only thing I've got to go on, which is a bit of a shame, really. Right, I'll let this dry, part it off, and then I'll bring you back when we're putting it all together. Okay, we're all finished, so we can put it together. Now, I did make a small mistake. When I was finishing this piece, I did unfortunately take a little bit too much material off this peg, so I've sawn down to the center and put a peg inside just to expand it a little bit. Hopefully it'll hold, but I have a plan if it doesn't. So right, let's put this together. a big click. All right. Moment of truth. Oh wow. That works an awful lot better than I thought it was going to. It's relatively stable. I like it. I love it. Because there's still quite a bit of mass in the wood, give it a decent push, it'll turn for a while. So there we go. Our homage to a wonderful tree which has stood guard outside an iconic building, New Scotland Yard. I'm so pleased this worked. I've never tried anything like this before, so to manage it first time is quite a relief. Right, if you've enjoyed this one, I would really appreciate a like and subscribe and all the usual things. And if you could share it as well, then that would be absolutely fantastic. Don't forget that if you leave a comment as well, then you are going to be entered into the giveaway, which is happening on the 5th of September. I also want to say a massive thank you to Paula, Matilda and P. Jones for supporting me this week through Buy Me a Coffee. If you want to help support the channel as well, then there's going to be a link at the end. Don't forget to check out the article I wrote on quarter sawing wood and other techniques for sawing. And there's a few other articles as well on making polishers and shellac as well. Lastly, I would like to say a massive thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. I'd like to thank you all as well for watching and joining me in this incredibly fun project. I could play with this for hours. So thank you all, and I'll see you next time. Thank you.